You think you own 500 companies. You own 7, and nobody told you when that changed. It's supposed to be the safest, most boring thing you'll ever buy. What if the safest thing you own is the biggest bet you've ever made, and you never once got to vote? You didn't pick this, the math did. In the next 13 minutes, you'll find out exactly what you own. The same 7 holding it up can bring it all down. Go check your fund. We'll wait. You did everything right. You ignored the hype. You didn't chase the meme stocks. You didn't buy the magic coin your cousin still won't shut up about at Thanksgiving. You bought the boring one, the index fund. 500 companies in one neat little package. The safe choice, the responsible choice, the thing every calm person on the internet swears by. Except it isn't spread across 500 companies anymore, not even close. That safe, boring fund is now mostly a bet on 7 companies, all racing to build the same thing, artificial intelligence. And nobody asked if you wanted in. So 2 questions, and I'm going to answer both. How did your retirement quietly turn into an AI bet you never placed? And what happens to it the day that bet wobbles? Because the fund everyone keeps calling diversified has been wearing a bit of a costume. Today we take it off. Meet Chip Diversely. Chip has built an entire career on 4 words: just buy the index. And for most people, most of the time, that's genuinely good advice. I'm not here to take it away from you. The pitch is simple, and it's beautiful. Don't try to pick winners, just buy all of them. Own a tiny slice of 500 of America's biggest companies and let the whole economy do the work. It's the one piece of money advice your responsible friend and a Nobel Prize winner actually agree on. So Walt did it. Walt set up the automatic transfer, bought the fund, and did the single hardest thing in all of investing. Nothing. For years. Like a champion. And Walt's about to find out the brochure lied by leaving something out. That fund with the word diversified on the label, it quietly stopped being diversified years ago and turned into a bet he never agreed to make. One boring little rule did it. It sounds like paperwork. It's the whole story. When you buy an index fund, it doesn't buy 500 companies evenly. It buys them by size. The bigger the company, the bigger the slice it takes of your money, automatically, every single time you get paid. So it's not a buffet where you take one of everything. It's a buffet where the plate fills itself, and the plate only has eyes for the 7 biggest dishes on the table. For a long time, that was fine, because the biggest companies kept changing. Oil, banks, soda. No single group ever ran away with it. Then, a handful of technology companies all decided to build artificial intelligence at the same time, and they got enormous. For 25 years, the 10 biggest companies were about 1/5 of the whole index, a reasonable number, the kind that never made the news. Then, in about a decade, it doubled. By the end of last year, the 10 largest were close to 40% of the entire index. For every dollar going into your 500 companies, nearly 40 cents was really going to just 10 of them. And the 7 biggest of those, the ones everyone calls the Magnificent 7, are about 35% of the index on their own. You believed you owned 500 companies. About 35 cents on every dollar is really just 7. One of them is bigger than the entire bottom of the index put together. For every dollar you invest, around 7 cents goes to a single chip maker, Nvidia, worth more, by itself, than the smallest few hundred companies in your fund combined. And it goes well past your fund. Those 7 companies are worth more than every public company in Britain, Japan, and Canada, combined. Not the governments, every company. All 3 countries, stacked together, and still smaller than the 7 names sitting quietly inside your retirement account. On paper, Nvidia alone is worth more than Germany's entire economy, one company's stock price against a whole country's yearly output. Every car, every factory, every very serious man in a very serious suit. One chip maker outweighs the lot. So somewhere out there is a guy who has never knowingly bought a tech stock in his life, who thinks Nvidia is a brand of windshield wiper, and who is, right now, one of the single largest backers of the artificial intelligence boom on planet Earth. That guy is you. And if your honest first reaction is the same as everyone else's, who is buying all this Nvidia? I have some bad news about the call coming from inside the house. It's you, quietly, every other Friday, straight out of your paycheck. You didn't even get a thank you card. Through all of this, Chip is still up on his stage, still pointing at the word diversified. He never looked behind him. The chart changed while he was talking. And that answers our first question. Nobody chose this. There was no meeting, no vote, no genius who called the top. The math chose it. Every paycheck, on autopilot, your fund was told to buy more of whatever had already won. The rule that was supposed to keep you safe, buy by size, is the exact rule that walked you into the most concentrated market in over 50 years. It didn't break the rules, it followed them perfectly. That's the unsettling part. And this has happened before, which should make you feel a little better, then significantly worse. Every generation, the index quietly becomes a bet on whatever's hot. And every generation is sure theirs is the exception. In the early 70s, it was a cluster of blue chips so beloved they were called one-decision stocks. Buy once, hold forever, never think again. Then the worst of them fell by more than half, and a lot of people thought about them quite a bit. In the year 2000, the most valuable company on the planet was a networking equipment maker called Cisco. People poured their retirement into it because the internet was the future. And the internet was the future. It still took Cisco 25 years just to climb back to the price it hit that year. If you bought the single most important company in the world at the top, you waited until late 2025 just to break even. Same movie, new cast. And this time, the lead is a chip the size of a country. More concentrated than the dot-com bubble, by a wide margin. Which raises the obvious, uncomfortable question. If 7 companies are a third of your diversified fund, then your retirement isn't diversified at all. Call it what it is, a high-conviction bet on artificial intelligence. Diversification was supposed to mean that if one company drives off a cliff, the other 499 keep you on the road. Right now, 7 of them are in the same car, holding hands, and one is steering with its eyes closed because the market keeps telling it it's a genius. Nobody handed you the prospectus on that. Put a real number on it. Say Walt has $50,000 in his nice, safe fund. About $17,500 of it is riding on 7 names. $3,500 are sitting in Nvidia alone, a single stock Walt genuinely could not pick out of a lineup. He owns more of that one company than he owns of 400 of the others put together. Walt didn't decide that. Walt bought a fund with the word diversified on the label and went to sleep. Back in 2015, the label was telling the truth. So who are these 7 that quietly became your retirement? A company that technically sells phones, a search engine, an online bookstore that grew teeth, the company that makes the chips, a social network that legally changed its name to get away from its own reputation, the software your office still runs on, and an electric car company run by a man who also runs a rocket company, a social network, and, allegedly, a startup that puts computers in people's skulls. That last one is about 2% of your retirement. Sleep well. When the 7 do well, you do well. For 2 straight years, that was the whole game. In 2023 and 2024, more than half of everything the index gained came from those 7 stocks. Not 500, 7. The other 493 mostly came along for the ride and split the bar tab, which felt amazing. Chip took a victory lap. See, the index always wins. Except the index didn't win. 7 companies won, and they were kind enough to drag the index up behind them like a kid pulling a wagon. The problem with being carried is that the same 7 names that lift you on the way up are the same 7 that decide how far you fall. And there's a gap worth seeing. Those top companies take about 40 cents of every dollar, but they produce only about a third of the actual profits in the index. The rest is a promise. You're not just paying for what they earn today. You're paying a premium for everything investors are betting they'll earn in an AI future that, so far, lives mostly in keynote presentations. It's the financial version of pre-ordering the sequel based on the trailer. Sometimes the sequel is great. Sometimes you paid full price for a teaser and a logo. And all of this is completely legal. I want to be very clear that it is legal. So was everything in 2008, right up until the part where it very suddenly wasn't. The instinct here is to do something. Before you do, look at what's actually on the line. What happens to your retirement the day these 7 names stumble? More than you'd think and faster than you'd like. The same concentration that carried you up is the same concentration that sets the depth of the fall. You'd feel it before you understood it. Your safe fund suddenly trading like a tech stock because, quietly, that's most of what it is now. Now, in fairness, and this part matters, this might turn out completely fine. These aren't 2000 Cisco. They're not running on hope and a slogan. They make staggering amounts of real money. And the index has a quiet self-correction built in. If the 7 fall, they automatically shrink and your fund rotates out of them without you lifting a finger. That is the system working exactly as designed. So the risk was never really that these companies are doomed. The risk is quieter than that. The risk is that you are far more exposed to a single story, one bet on one idea, than you would ever have chosen on purpose. And you only find out whether that was brilliant or reckless in hindsight. You didn't pick that risk level. The math picked it for you. And the catch is this: the only way to unpick it is to bet you're smarter than the market that set those prices. Maybe you are. Just know that's the trade. Which brings us to the exits. Because you do have them, and that matters. You are not stuck. You were just never told there was a choice. Door 1. The equal weight version. Same 500 companies, but everyone gets an identical slice. Nvidia and the smallest name in the index treated as equals. Sounds like the fix. Real diversification. Finally fair. Look what that fairness cost. Over the last couple of years, the evenly sliced version trailed the regular one by about 13%. Betting against the giants, even correctly, has been expensive. Over the very long run, the two roughly tie. So equal weight isn't wrong, it's just not a free upgrade. It's a trade, and the bill comes early. The other exits are quicker to explain. A value fund leans away from the pricey names, one that skips the giants on purpose. The rest of the world, where the 7 don't live. Each one shrinks your AI bet. Each one also means standing on the curb, watching the giants drive off without you, while you tell yourself you are being responsible. And the one most people actually reach for, I'll just buy the total market, all of it, does almost nothing. A few thousand more companies, sure. The same 7 still sit right on top. You didn't leave the room, you just turned the lights down a little and felt better about it. That's not a reason to panic. It's a reason to know what you actually own. So, your index fund isn't a scam, it isn't broken. For most people, most of the time, it's still the right call. It's just not the quiet, evenly spread, nothing to see here thing the word diversified promised. Somewhere along the way, the safest choice in investing became a high-stakes bet on 7 companies and one very big idea, and forgot to mention it on the way in. You don't have to do anything differently. Plenty of people will hear all of this and happily keep riding the 7. That is a completely real choice. It's just the first time it'll actually be a choice. You did everything right. You just never looked under the costume. Underneath, it was always 7. So I'm genuinely curious. Go pull up the top holdings of whatever fund you own. It takes 10 seconds. And drop in the comments how concentrated yours is. I want to know if anyone's is worse than mine. It probably is. And if you want the other half of this, what actually happens to a market this top-heavy when the promise finally slips, that's the next one. I'll see you there. Try not to check your 401k on the way.